Spotlight. Today's video we're going to be looking at a more confusing leader for a lot of people to play, but still a very powerful one and a very cool one to play as if you know exactly what you're doing, or rather, if you're really willing to just jump in there and have some fun, which should always be the main goal of playing a card game. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Disclaimer about the leader spotlight. These cards aren't always going to become the most meta cards with each of these different leaders, but just ones I personally like with them. Also, because of the purpose of keeping the video short, I'm not going to put all the cards that I think work personally with this leader in today's video. I'm going to keep it down to the cards that I really caught out and grabbed my attention and held it there for the longest. That being said, let's get right into our leader, which is of course going to be Han Solo. Now, Han Solo is a cunning and heroism leader, but this seems to be the Han Solo before he really meets up and joins up with the Rebels. So it's really that first movie Han Solo, or even before that, you can conceptualize, because he only has the underworld keyword, right? And he has an action. You can put a card from your hand into play as a resource and ready it. At the start of your next action phase, defeat a resource you control. He has the epic action. If you control 6 or more resources, you can deploy him as a leader unit. Now, once you do that, he's a 4/6 stat line. He has essentially the same ability, just on attack. You can put the top card of your deck into play as a resource and ready it, and at the start of your next action phase, defeat a resource you control. That being said, when looking at Han Solo, we're looking at powerful plays we can make with more resources than your opponent might have during any given turn, and then we're also going to be looking at just ways to draw cards and keep cards in your hand. Because you're one to always be ramping up, especially with that leader side ability, you don't want to ever let your hand run too thin. So we're going to talk about a lot of cards that really have powerful swings, but we're also going to talk about a lot of cards that, in my opinion, will help you draw cards and keep your card filled up. So starting off with Cunning, if you want to play double Cunning, Jedha's City is obviously a great option you can go with. A little more defense essentially, or maybe aggressive safety. But also, I think there's nothing wrong with using the generic bases, because I can't fault you for wanting a little bit more extra health, especially if you're trying to make this game run a little longer than they usually might. First card we're going to look at is Edward Bridger. Although he's a Spectre card and he really works really well with Hera, obviously for being a Spectre, I think he works really well in Han for a couple of reasons. First off, he's a 3 cost. Han can add an extra resource every turn. You start the game with 2 resources. So essentially you can play Ezra turn 1 since he's only a 3 cost. He's a 3/4 stat line, and when this unit completes an attack, you can look at the top card of your deck and you may play it. Discard it or leave it on the top of your deck. This is a generically good ability because it allows you to extend your hand past what's in your hand into what's on the top of your deck as well. And if you don't like what's there, instead of just not playing it, you can also get rid of it or leave it there if you want to save it for a future turn. A lot of versatility with this card, and it works especially well with Han. Leia Organa is obviously a card we want to take a look at when we're playing a Han Solo deck, and not just for the obvious reasons, but for also reasons that she actually helps him in the game. She's a 2-cost unit that is a 2/2 stat line, and when you can play her, you can either ready a resource or exhaust the unit. Her ability to ready your own resources allows you to play even more cards during your turn. Although this won't really change the swing of the plays you might be able to make, it will allow you to, in the long run, to essentially cheat out a couple more cards than you may have otherwise been able to. And then I threw this in here just because it's Chewbacca, not because it's a great thing that works really well with Han Solo leader card, but I mean, it's Chewie. So there's a lot of theme there. So he's a 5-cost unit, 3/6, big. He has Sentinel, great. And when this unit is attacked, you can ready him. So you can use him multiple times during your turn, while during one phase, if your opponent's going to keep attacking into him and doesn't have anything like Saboteur, or he doesn't have anything strong enough to take him out. So he's obviously works pretty well for protecting your base, and if you're trying to make your game go longer by stretching it out and hopefully using your more resources as an advantage, Chewie can actually work pretty well with Han in that sense. And then for the space units, you can have the Mining Guild TIE Fighter. It's a 1-cost unit. It has a 1/2 stat line. And on attack, you can pay 2. And if you do draw a card, it's getting extra cards in your hand. So hopefully you don't run out of hand size. But also, it allows you to do something with those resources in case you may not have a good option in your hand at the moment. The Millennium Falcon is obviously a very thematic card with Han Solo, one of his most famous counterparts, or rather his most famous things he's associated with. This is a 3-cost unit in this game, and it is a 3/4 stat line. And when it interplays ready, which means you can use it the next action you get a chance. And when you ready cards during the regroup phase, either pay 1 resource or return this unit to her owner's hand, quote unquote her. I'm pretty sure it's a typo. It's supposed to be their hand or your hand or whatever it's supposed to be that they usually use, but it seems to be a typo here and say her. Just something I felt I should point out, because would I not? Also, the Pirated Starfighter, a little bit of an interesting choice in my opinion, but I do actually have a reason for liking it. So it's a 2-cost unit, 2/4. It's a has raid 1, and when you play, you can return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. And this could help in a multitude of different ways, but also it can just give you more options, allow you to, say, use some of those cool abilities that happen on play again, or it can allow you to, say, get more cards in your hand. Maybe you don't really want to use that leader unit anymore, and you may want to pick it right back up. I mean, there's multiple ways you can use it, but it's going to take a little bit of thinking, to be honest, and to admit it's not always going to just save you the game, right? For some events, you can have Shoot First. Again, classic Han. 1-cost event. You attack with the unit, and it gets +1 power and +0 HP for this attack, and it deals damage before the defender, which means you can swing in with one of your units, and you can actually take out, hopefully, a defending unit before your opponent really has anything to do about it, before they can do anything about it. You can also play Bamboozle. Generically good card, 2-cost event, has some Han art on it, and you can discard a yellow card, a cunning card from your hand instead of paying its 2 cost, but you may want to keep that in your hand depending on really what's going on. But it could be free, essentially, for the cost of a singular card, which is something to keep in mind. And you exhaust a unit and return each upgrade onto its opponent's hand. So if your opponent's trying to Christmas tree up one of their units, you can tap it out, make sure they can't use it this phase, and then you can also get rid of all those upgrades. So it just really knocks away any sort of upgrade, super upgrade heavy gameplay. Also any sort of big, I'm going to play this big unit type of, well, this is the big thing, I'm going to defeat you with one unit. If this fails, I lose. That knocks that out of the way as well. And it could be free for you as well. So you don't even have to worry about paying any resources for it. Then you can go ahead and play the Smuggling Compartment. This is going to go on vehicles. We have a couple different vehicles that we're talking about in today's video, and I think that this is one of the cards that is going to really help those vehicles, because it allows you to give that vehicle +1/+1, but also on attack, ready a resource, which means you're going to be able to basically be cheating out a couple more resource uses than, again, you might otherwise been able to. Then if you want to play Han on aggression, the options aren't exactly amazing. They don't really jump out at many people, but there are some good options there, right? So you can play him with K2S0, 4-cost unit, 4/4. It has Overwhelm, and then when it's defeated, you can, for each opponent, choose one, either deal 3 damage to that player's base, or that player discards a card from their hand. A little bit of disruption there, and a little bit of burn too. Just a good unit overall. Han can obviously get this out earlier than other people may be able to, right? So then you have the 3-cost unit also. Similarly, this can be a turn 1 card. Fighters for Freedom. It's going to be a 3/4 Saboteur, and when you play another aggression card, you may deal 1 damage to a base. So a little bit of burn there, a little bit of aggression, right? Because when we were playing Han, you're kind of just playing everything a little bit, hopefully, better than your opponent by just playing more expensive cards earlier than they can. The Starwing Scout is going to be a 3-cost unit, a 4/1 stat line, but when it is defeated, if you have the initiative, you can draw 2 cards, getting more card draw in your hand, like I was talking about earlier. Won't always be the greatest thing in the world. Sometimes you won't need the extra card, and obviously with only 1 health, 1 HP, it's not going to be the most powerful and game-changing card, but also you can get this out turn 1, essentially, and deal 4 damage early game, and your opponent really, their only rebuttal could be to kill it, and if you happen to have the initiative, then you can get 2 cards off of it. That being said, you can also play the Black 1. It's going to be a 6-cost unit, so a little bit more expensive, but it's going to be a 4/4, and when you play it or when it's defeated, you may discard your entire hand and draw 3 cards. And in Star Wars Unlimited, you draw 2 cards every turn, true, but you also resource a card a turn. You don't start the game with too many cards in your hand. So at the end of the day, you can be running out of cards relatively quickly, and sometimes your hand size might be 2 or even 1 cards or 1 card. And discarding the 1 or 2 to get a new 3 is absolutely amazing, and generally it's going to be something you want to do. But the best part of this card is you don't even have to. If you don't want to use that ability, you don't have to use it. So when you say your opponent kills this, then you still don't have to get rid of your hand if it's up to like 4 cards. You can just say, well, I'm going to pass on that trigger for now, or other for this chance. Mission Briefing is a 3-cost event. It's going to allow you to choose a player and they draw 2 cards. Usually it can be yourself, but you obviously, if you're playing multiplayer, you can choose like a person you're trying to help out or a teammate or something like that if you're playing the Twin Suns format. But that being said, it's just a generic card that's going to allow you to get some extra cards in your hand, get more options with Han, and if you need more cards to resource in the future turns, it's going to allow you to refill your hand a little bit. Then, of course, you have the event 4 calls I believe in. It's a 3-cost event. Reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each heroism card revealed this way, deal 1 damage to an enemy base. You may discard any of the revealed cards and put the rest back on top of your deck. So it's allowing to filter your options again, allow you to get a better sense of what you're going to be getting in the future. It's going to allow you to get some of the cards you really need in the future, and of course, it's also going to allow you to do a little bit of an aggression, a little bit of burn damage there, right? Okay, so moving on from aggression and on to command. I really like command Han Solo, right? You can play him with the energy conversion lab, playing a 6-cost unit and giving it ambush. And as you can see, we're gonna be talking about a lot of ambush command cards in today's video. So I call it the ambush package. But you can play Wedge, and he's a 5-cost 5/5, and each friendly vehicle unit gets +1/+1 and gains ambush. When you play it, it may ready and attack an enemy unit, right? And then you have the Rogue Squadron Skirmisher. It's a 6-cost unit, so a little bit more expensive, but it's a 4/6 ambush by nature. But also when it's played, you can return a unit that costs 2 or less from your discard pile to your hand, allow you to pick up some of those units that you may need to reuse for others, any abilities that you may need to use them for at any given moment, right? So then you can also use the Escort Skiff. It's a vehicle unit, so it works with Wedge. It's a 4-cost 4/4. While you control another command unit, this unit gains ambush. You're just going to be playing cards quicker than your opponent can play them and using them really quickly. Deal some quick damage to your opponent. You can play the Patrolling V-Wing. It's a 2-cost unit, 1 power, 1 HP. And when you play, you can just get to draw a card. Very generic, very basic. Just to get a little extra draw power, filter out your hand a little bit essentially if you need to. Then you have the Bright Hope. It's a 4-cost 2/6 Sentinel, so it's a little bit of defensive body. When you play it, you can return a friendly non-leader ground unit to its owner's hand if you do draw a card. So then a non-leader ground unit. So then you can just, sometimes this may be important, sometimes it may not, but if you have, like again, with the other Pirated Starship, if you just have a card you don't really think you're using, don't really need, or other than that, or things like that, you can then put this down, pick that up, draw a card, getting more cards in your hand. But really, it's a 2-card in your hand swing type of thing. And although you will be technically losing resources in the process, it can sometimes pay off. And if you're really trying to go for a really big home run type of game plan, you can play Home 1. It's a 7/7/8 cost to restore 2. When it attacks, you hail 2 from your base. Each other friendly unit gains restore 1. When they attack, they hail 1 from your base. When it's played, you can also play a heroism unit from your discard pile. It costs 3 less. So it's going to allow you to get some cheaper units out onto the field. Then Resupply is a generically good card. It's a 3-cost event. You can put this event into play as a resource. And in Han Solo, that's a turn 1 type of card, so it's going to allow you to ramp up a whole lot faster than your opponent. And it's going to allow you to get some bigger cards, even bigger cards out than you will be playing Han in other decks, but also even more powerful in this command list, right? Recruit is always a generically good card. It's a 1-cost, search 5, cards in your hand for Han, specific cards in your hand for Han, and just the ability to get out some cards you need. Really doesn't really matter what type of unit you may be needing at the moment, allows you to get them. And then Prepare for Takeoff is a more expensive version of Recruit, but allows you to search 8 and allows you to get 2 vehicle units. So you can actually search out a lot of these vehicle units that have ambush, search them out, get them in your hand for the next turn, in which you can really try to play more of them and ambush your opponent. And then if you want to play him on Vigilance, which is not my preferred way to play him, but also it has some merits to it as almost all aspects do, which is why Unlimited is so cool. You can play it in a multitude of different ways. 3-cost Yoda can become the turn 1 card, 2/4, restore 2. When defeated, you can choose any number of players to each draw a card. Cards in your hand, restoring, great, just in general. Luke Skywalker is a bigger card, a 7-cost, 6/7, restore 3. When you play him, you can give an enemy unit -3/-3. But also, if you have a friendly unit that was defeated this phase, you can also give that same unit actually -6/-6 instead. So it's going to allow you to play really just knock your opponent's units right off the field, essentially. And then, of course, you have the Restored Arc 170. It's going to be a 2-cost unit, 2/3, restore 1. Just generic, but also you see we're sort of going into this sort of restore thing. We're going to be playing the long game. Hopefully that our higher resources are going to allow us to overall outcurve our opponent. You can play Takedown. It's just a generically good event. 4-cost, defeat a unit with 5 or less HP remaining. That will most likely be your opponent's unit, but I mean, a lot of different units only have 5 HP remaining, especially in the early game. Being the fact that you can get this card out earlier than other decks, it becomes even more especially good. The Jedi Lightsabers are 3 cost, +3/+3, only attached to a non-vehicle unit, but if the attached unit is a force unit, it gains on attack, give the defender a -2/-2. Obviously, that won't always happen, but with Yoda and Luke in your deck, it can end up happening for you. Generic heroism cards you can add into your Han Solo deck. You can go ahead and play R2-D2. He's a cheap unit, so he's going to be a 1/4, and when you play him or when you attack with him, you can look at the top card of your deck. You may put it in the bottom of your deck. A little bit of filtering. Obviously, he's cheap, and he's not a non-really main aspected unit, so he's not going to be as powerful or as flashy as some other cards in the game, but he can absolutely help you out when it matters. And then you can also play the Snowspeeder. It's going to have Ambush. It's going to be a 5 cost unit, 3/6, and it's going to really fit into that sort of ambush package. And on the attack, you can exhaust an enemy vehicle, you ground unit. Just generically good. And then finally, you can play the event for 3 costs. You're my only hope. Look at the top cards. Look at the top card deck. You may play it. It costs 5 less. If your base has 5 or less remaining HP, you may play the card for free instead. Obviously, with Han, you can play this as a turn 1 card. You may not always want to play this as a turn 1 card, but in certain situations, you can do that and just like we're just going to look at the top card of our deck and play it. And usually, most cards in your deck are going to be less than 5 cost or 5 or less, so you don't really have to worry too much about that. But in some cases, especially later in the game, when you may get more knowledge with R2-D2 or with some other cards in your deck that allow you to filter around, like because it's a cause I believe in, you can play this out and know what's up there and then get a free card. And then also, if it's later in the game, you're really on your last leg, then bam, you can play this and get, no matter what the card it is, even if it's the home one, you can play it for free for that home run. Overall, when you're playing with Han Solo, there's a lot of sort of big swings involved with playing the deck. Han Solo, in my opinion, is really up to you, the player, to interpret. You can play him in a lot of different ways, and that what makes him so cool. I mean, I like Han Solo as a character generally, but I think that this card in particular sort of implements and exemplifies some of the things that he does within the universe, but also I think it gives players a lot of room to breathe when building this deck. It's not forcing you into any sort of game plan or play style, just a simple idea and rules to follow when you're playing the game to make sure that you get the most use out of Han as you possibly can. That being said, that's going to be it for today's Spotlight. Hope you guys come back for the next one and take a look at some of our other Spotlight videos we have up on the channel. Because guess what? Stars Unlimited is going to be dropping soon, and we're going to keep talking about leader cards until that happens. And I hope to see you guys in them. Well, that's going to be all for now, but if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and watch some of our other videos that we've made on this channel. Also, give this video a like if you thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future content. And I hope to see you guys back at the Roost.